Hey friends, welcome to my channel. It has been a hot minute since I've released anything on my channel. Why? Because I've been riding my board. That's all I want to do is just get out there and ride. And boy, do you ever get to see more ground with the Onewheel XR. So this video is all about me comparing my experiences having over 500 kilometers on the Onewheel Pint, almost actually at 1,000 kilometers. And now I have about 500 kilometers on the Onewheel XR. So these will be my thoughts to let you know which one you should buy. So I'm going to run through the pros and cons of the Onewheel Pint, pros and cons of the Onewheel XR, and at the end of the video I'll get into my thoughts on which board I think you should invest in if you're just getting into the Onewheel. And I'll have all of the time codes laid out below so you can skip ahead to the different parts of the video that interest you more. Let's get into it. Alright, skip the intro. So we'll start with the Pint. So, like most people, I picked up the Pint because it was the cheaper option of the two. I knew I would love a Onewheel experience. I've been obsessed with it since 2017. And it took me, 3 years before I picked up my first board. So I picked that up in May in 2020. And it was just like a game changer. It just a snowboard experience in the summertime with a board that goes up hills. I mean, it's an experience, right? And now I would say my main addiction is Onewheeling. But I started with the Pint because it's less expensive. Next pro for a lot of people is the Pint is a skateboard size. So people that have skateboarded in the past will be right at home on this board right away. And that, it's also because it has a smaller foot pad, it's easier to transport around because it's just a little bit smaller. I mean, I've talked about the foot size, the foot pads being smaller, the battery's a little bit smaller, and all of that makes a compact package. So it is easier to fit in my car. I usually put it in that pocket where people's legs go if you're a passenger in the back seat. And certainly the Pint fits in there a lot easier than the XR. Although I will say that the weight difference, the 2-pound weight difference or whatever it is really not that noticeable, especially if you have to go for a long walk with either of the boards. Here's a hack if you have kids. Use the kids' seat. You're done. Another pro of the Pint is it's really nimble and torquey. You'll hear that a lot. It's actually the same motor in the hub of the Onewheel Pint as it is in this board, the XR, but the tires are actually an inch smaller in diameter, so through that you get more torque from the motor. Now there's a difference between the battery and the output of the battery, but I did notice that myself. Is it just a little bit more playful? But that also might come with the tire that comes with it. So the stock tire that ships with the Pint is a bit curvier. So you got kind of a torqueier, rounded, carvier board for you, and it's super fun. Okay, so another thing I have on my list, this came from experience, but the Pint is actually a better hill climber than the XR is. It's a shorter board, so it has less overhang when you're climbing up a steep slope, and it still has an elevated rider profile, so the front of the board angles up slightly so that you have more clearance when you're riding up the hill. But I've tested the same trail with the Onewheel Pint and the XR, and I was more able to climb up these sections on the Pint than I was the XR, which actually surprised me.
Come on, go, you fucker!
And the last thing is the design of the Pint is just that much sleeker. It's looks like a finished product versus the XR looks like a DIY project you did in your garage. Now I have mine all customized, so it looks really sweet now, but certainly I have had way more comments with riding the XR around with people asking, did you build that in your garage? Than I ever did with the Pint. It's a nicer looking machine. Okay, but the Pint certainly has some drawbacks. It's almost half the price of the XR, and there's reasons for that. And the first thing that's going to be on the list of cons is, of course, the range. When you first get the Pint and you're riding it around, it doesn't really seem like an issue because you're getting all this fun time riding your board and you're stoked on it. And when you stop riding, your feet are a little sore. You kind of need the break. But as you ride for a longer period of time, get more comfortable with the board, it doesn't take long before you're craving that extra range. Range anxiety is real. You have to be very deliberate about where you're going, where your charge stations are going to be. And there's usually two paths people go at this point. Either they look to VNR or upgrade the battery within the Pint, or they do what I did and they upgrade to a Onewheel XR.
Hey, that's my board!
So another con, I mean, this will be kind of interesting because I put it on the Pro, but I'd say for larger people, the size of the footpads of the Pint is a bit small for comfort. And I only really realized that after getting the XR, because the XR footpads are just that much better for my size 12 feet. So this might not be an issue if you have smaller feet. If they fit on the pads, then you're good to go. I mean, for kids, my daughter loves the board. Yeah, she has zero issues with her feet getting sore because they fit on the board instead of like with me, my heel and my toe are off the board or I have to pick one. And that just doesn't make for the most enjoyable or comfortable riding experience. So another con on the list you wouldn't know unless you had the Onewheel XR is there's no custom digital shaping mode. So it has the 4 modes: elevated mode, trail mode, cruiser mode, and then they have kind of a mode for beginners. But when you're going down hills, like steep trail riding hills, with the Onewheel XR, I have a custom profile that I have that will lower the nose down 1%. And you can't do that with the Pint. There's no mode for that, and there's no way to customize those. And so that doesn't seem like a big thing, but it's not until you have the XR that you realize how valuable and how fun it is to kind of tweak the aggression or the acceleration of your board. And it truly does make quite a difference to the ride when you do tweak those settings. It's fun to play with, and it's just something I wish that the Pint had, but it doesn't.
Hey, what up? It's Editing Mike from the future. I realized while I was putting this together that I didn't even talk about the biggest thing that drives me nuts about the Pint that actually pushed me towards getting an XR, and that is Pushback. So Pushback is a safety feature of the board that lets you know that you're overloading the motor by bringing the nose of the board up a little bit. And so it lets you know you should slow down a little bit, and then once you do, the nose comes back down and you can ride normally again. So with the Pint, Pushback is more intense and it comes sooner because the high speed of the Pint is a little bit lower than the XR. And so what I found eventually after I became really comfortable on the Pint is I was riding in Pushback all the time. Like when on my daily commute, I felt like I was Captain Morgan. You know how he has his knee up like this? I felt like that's how I was riding because it just happens so soon. And there's no way to avoid that. If you upgrade the battery, that doesn't change the fact that Pushback happens. And I just found with the XR, it's still there, but it's just not as intense. And the high speed is a little bit higher, so I don't really feel like I need that extra speed. Whereas with the Pint, I just felt like I wanted a little bit more speed and way less pushback. But it's definitely the biggest thing that makes me recommend the XR over the Pint if you're going to be commuting longer distances. That, and also you can't get there with the Pint because it doesn't have the range. Okay, back to the video.
So the last point I have on my cons list, the reason why I can't access my Pint on the app is because my controller had an issue. So my board just shut down a couple weeks back within the 1-year warranty. So I had to send it into Future Motion. And so obviously this is a problem that happened with me specifically. But the weird thing is when I bought my Pint, I bought it with one of my good friends. He bought a Pint at the exact same time. He had the exact same issue happen with his Pint. So I don't know if we had a bad run off the manufacturing floor or what, but that's 2 for 2 of the Pints that I'm close to that have gone down for warranty issues with their controller. Like I say, this is experience specifically for me and my friend, but it just seems kind of funny that both of our boards had the same issue and it was both covered under warranty, so it's probably something that Future Motion is very aware of. I will have a caveat in this that Future Motion was great. Their correspondence was awesome. Hey, we received your board. We're looking at it right now. There was an issue with the controller. We're fixing it under warranty and we're shipping it back to you. Here's your FedEx number. It was wonderful. It worked great. And they covered my warranty. I mean, what else can you ask for? So good on you, Future Motion. Okay, so that's the one wheel pint. Let's get to the XR, and then after that I'll run through my personal thoughts of which board you should get. So let's go with the pros of the XR next. So obviously, one of the major cons of the one wheel pint is its range. So on the pros list of the XR is its range. I'm getting actually probably over double the range of what I had on my pint. I'm gonna have to do a more thorough test of that when I get my pint back. But comparisons aside, I mean, there's enough range with the XR that you can just kind of get all the way across your city. I park in one parking lot that gives me access to this trail ride along the river to get to work. And with the XR, I can get anywhere in the city from that parking lot. With the one wheel pint, that wasn't really the case. And it's built that way. You know, I don't have to add a VNR or add a new battery that fucks up the app. For me, I just really like the board to work the way it's supposed to with the app that connects and all that stuff. So definitely the range, number one pro on my XR list. Second one that I have is the size of the foot pads. Bigger guy like me, size 12 feet. They just fit on the pads better, so they're more comfortable. But not only that, I do a lot of trail riding, and I find when I'm riding with the bigger pads, my feet just stay on it, and I feel more attached to my board. Whereas when I'm riding the pint, which I've done a lot of trail riding with as well, I kind of feel more like I'm riding something and it'll like kick me off at any second. Whereas with this board, I'm on there, man. I'm stuck to that thing. So for the trail riding experience, I think that their marketing when it comes to the XR versus pint is spot on. Is if you're going to be riding on asphalt trails, I think the pint is really fun, but it just doesn't hold a candle to the XR when you're trail riding. So the next thing, well, the wheel size again. So this is an inch bigger. So if anyone ever mountain bikes, when they went from 26-inch wheels to 29-inch wheels, the main benefit you had is you're getting over the roots and stuff that much easier because your wheel's that much bigger. And that's the same thing with the one wheels. With that extra inch of diameter, you're going over more obstacles easier. Makes it that much more stable and fun on the trail. So that brings me to the last thing I have on my list, which will be of no surprise if you watched my Pint Pros and Cons. It's going to be the digital shaping. They're truly awesome. Like I said, for going down hills, you can put the front of the board angled down. You can't do that with the Pint. You can have it so it's just a little bit angled up for hills or for the full 3% up. You can have it so it's carvy or aggressive or less aggressive, more carvy. And it's amazing how these little tweaks change the board ride, the ride quality. Like literally you switch the fader to carvier, and even with the square Vega tire, it feels carvier. It's some sort of magic for sure that they've had in the programming of this board. Is it necessary? No, of course not. You can have plenty of fun on the Pint without custom digital shaping. You just have more fun on the XR. All right, but the XR is not without its issues as well. There's certainly cons of this board, although my list is quite a bit shorter than my Pint Cons list. First on my list, it's the DIY project look, man. It just looks like you printed the parts at home and then built it based off a subreddit page or something. Like it just doesn't have the polished look that the Pint has. I can't wait to see the next version of the longer range board that they have, because I'm sure it's going to incorporate some of the design from the Pint, but give you some of the extra range of the XR, and that's going to be wonderful. But right now, it's kind of ugly. Now it grows on you. When you customize it, put on your own stickers and all the stuff that you do. In my opinion, it just doesn't look as good as the Pint. Prove me wrong. Put your comments in the comments. So the next thing on the list is the stock Vega tire for the XR is, in my opinion, just not a very good fit for the board. Now, I kind of understand why Future Motion put that tire on. It's a really flat, it's a square profile. So when you're riding it, it doesn't really lean or carve that well back and forth. It kind of just hugs the road with that flat surface on the bottom of the wheel, which if you're just learning to ride a one wheel, it helps you with that. But as soon as you get accustomed to riding a one wheel, I would recommend changing out that tire right away, and it just makes the ride that much carvier and more playful and fun. If you want to hear more of my thoughts about the Burris versus the Vega on the XR, I'll link the video above where I changed that tire out and do a bit of a range test between the two tires. So, and then the last point I have for cons of the XR is there's no mag handle included. So there's no way to carry the board like this. Now, here's another caveat. I don't really carry the XR like that. I really like the nose handle on this. It's a nice, big, beefy, deep grip. And it just the way that you carry it, you kind of lean on the board that way. I do really like that handle, but I kind of wish there was that sleek little pocket handle that they have on the Pint built into this as well. I know you can buy it, but even the one that you can buy looks like it doesn't really sit as well as the handle that they have for the Pint, that mag handle. So I don't know, that's kind of a con, it's kind of a pro at the same time. I'm just trying to make my cons list a little bit bigger for the XR to even it out, but to be honest, that feels like it's getting a little bit nitpicky, but I mean, there you go. Okay, so there you go. There's the comprehensive pros and cons list, the sciences behind the XR and the Pint. So which board would I pick up today if I wanted to get into one-wheeling? I mean, I think you can probably already guess where I'm going to go with this from my pros and cons list, but honestly, if you can scrape up enough money to pick up a one-wheel XR, you're going to be so happy for that. The extra range that it gives you, the size of the board, the ability for it to go on trails or on the road. I mean, the Pint does that too. Don't get me wrong. I love my Pint. I still take it for cruises sometimes, just on short cruises, because it doesn't go as far. And that makes a huge difference when you're talking about an electric rideable. You don't want to keep checking your app to see how much range you have to make sure you don't have to do a long walk home carrying your board. You want to just be able to get home. And that's what the XR has given me. I mean, I think the biggest tell for which board is more valuable to me is which board I pick when I go out the door. And since I got the XR, if I'm not going on a little tiny cruise up to the corner store, I'm taking the XR every time. The bigger foot pads for my feet, the higher top speed, the more subtle pushback, all of it just equates to a better ride, in my opinion. But hey, that's just what this is. That's my opinion. I'm really interested to hear your thoughts. Throw them in the comments below. I'm sure there's things that I haven't thought of here. If you're still watching, just give it a thumbs up. That's all I ask. And if this video is at all interesting to you, you'll probably like my one-wheel playlist that I will link at the end of this video. Thanks for sticking around. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you on the next video. Peace.